Marcus Reed's alarm didn't go off at 6:15 like it was supposed to. Instead, he woke to his daughter's voice, small and uncertain, filtering through the thin walls of their apartment. "Daddy, there's a lady in the kitchen." His eyes snapped open. Sunlight was already streaming through the gap in his curtains, which meant he had overslept. Badly. He grabbed his phone from the nightstand. 8:32. He had exactly 28 minutes to get Emma to school before she'd be marked late for the third time this month. But Emma's words registered slowly, like a delayed echo. A lady in the kitchen. Marcus threw off his blanket and stood, still wearing yesterday's jeans because he'd been too exhausted to change before collapsing into bed. His feet hit the cold floor, and he moved toward the door, heart already accelerating with a cocktail of confusion and protective instinct. The apartment was small, 3 steps from his bedroom door, and he could see into the kitchen. What he saw made him stop breathing. A woman stood at his stove, her back to him, wearing his shirt. Not just any shirt, his favorite gray Henley, the soft one with the frayed collar that he'd owned since college. It fell to mid-thigh on her frame, and beneath it, he could see long, bare legs that ended in bare feet against his scuffed linoleum floor. Her dark hair was loose, falling in waves past her shoulders. She was doing something at the stove, and the smell of coffee filled the small space, rich and impossibly out of place in his instant coffee-only kitchen. Emma stood near the refrigerator, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her 6-year-old face a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. "Who are you?" Marcus managed, his voice rough with sleep and alarm. The woman turned, and recognition hit him like a physical blow. Victoria Chun. He knew that face. Everyone in the city knew that face. She had been on the cover of Forbes 3 months ago, profiled as one of the youngest self-made billionaires in tech. Chun Industries had revolutionized cloud infrastructure, and Victoria Chun was its brilliant, ruthless architect. She was also, impossibly, standing in his kitchen at 8:33 on a Thursday morning, wearing his shirt with no apparent explanation. "Good morning," she said, and her voice was calm, controlled, as if this were the most natural situation in the world. "I'm making eggs. I hope you don't mind. Your daughter said you usually make breakfast around now." Marcus stared. His brain was trying to process multiple impossibilities at once. Victoria Chun, in his apartment, in his shirt, making eggs. "How did you get here?" The question came out sharper than he intended. "I walked from your bedroom," she said, meeting his eyes with an expression he couldn't quite read. Not defiant, not apologetic, just steady. "About 5 minutes ago." If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The implication settled over him like ice water. His bedroom. She had been in his bedroom. With him. Marcus's mind raced backward, trying to grab hold of last night's memories. He'd worked a double shift at the warehouse, loading and unloading freight until his shoulders burned and his back ached. He'd picked up Emma from his neighbor Mrs. Chun, no relation to the billionaire currently scrambling eggs in his kitchen. He'd fed Emma leftover spaghetti. He'd read her 2 chapters of Charlotte's Web. He'd fallen into bed at 9:45, unconscious almost before his head hit the pillow. There was no gap, no missing hours, no explanation for how Victoria Chun had ended up here. "Daddy, is she a friend?" Emma asked, her voice small. Marcus tore his gaze from Victoria to look at his daughter. Emma's auburn hair, so much like her mother's, was tangled from sleep. She was still in her unicorn pajamas, and she held her rabbit with both arms wrapped tight around its warm body. "I don't know, sweetheart," Marcus said honestly. He looked back at Victoria. "I really don't know." Victoria turned off the stove and plated the eggs with efficient, precise movements. She set the plate on his small kitchen table, then poured coffee into 2 mugs he didn't recognize. Where had those come from? He only owned 3 mismatched cups, all of them chipped. "We need to talk," Victoria said. "But first, your daughter needs to eat, and you need to get her to school." The statement was so matter-of-fact, so casually authoritative, that Marcus felt anger flare beneath his confusion. "Don't tell me what my daughter needs," he said, keeping his voice level despite the heat in his chest. "Tell me what you're doing in my home." Victoria's expression shifted, something flickering across her features. Regret, maybe, or calculation. It was gone too quickly for him to be sure. "You're right," she said quietly. "I'm sorry. That came out wrong." She glanced at Emma, then back at Marcus. "Can we talk after you take her to school? I promise I'll explain everything." Marcus wanted to demand answers now, to call the police, to do something that made sense. But Emma was watching, her eyes wide, and he could see the beginning of anxiety in the way she clutched her rabbit tighter. He made a decision. "Emma, go get dressed. Brush your teeth. I'll make you a granola bar for the car." "But the lady made eggs," Emma protested. "The eggs are for me and the lady," Marcus said. "We have grown-up things to discuss." Emma's face fell, but she obeyed, padding back toward her bedroom with her rabbit dragging behind her. The moment her door closed, Marcus turned back to Victoria. "You have exactly 15 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't call the police right now." "Because I didn't break in," Victoria said. "You let me in last night. I was asleep by 9:45. I don't even remember coming home." "You came home at 9:37, Victoria said. "I know because I was waiting outside your building. I needed to talk to you, and you invited me inside." Marcus shook his head. "That's impossible. I don't know you. I've never met you. Why would I invite you inside?" "Because I told you I was in trouble," Victoria said, and for the first time, her composure cracked. Just slightly, just enough that he could see fear underneath. "And you're the kind of man who helps people, even strangers. Especially strangers." He studied her face, searching for deception, for the angle, for whatever game this was. But what he saw was exhaustion. Real, bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of expensive skincare or good genetics could hide. There were shadows under her eyes, and her hands, when she picked up one of the coffee mugs, trembled slightly. "What kind of trouble?" Marcus asked. "The kind that means I can't go home right now," Victoria said. "The kind that means I needed a place to hide for one night, and your apartment was the safest place I could think of." "My apartment." Marcus gestured at the cramped space, at the water stain on the ceiling that he kept meaning to fix, at the second-hand furniture and toy bins overflowing in the corner. "How is this the safest place for a billionaire?" "Because no one would think to look for me here," Victoria said simply. "And because last night, when I was standing outside in the rain, you were the only person who opened their door." Marcus didn't remember any of this. None of it. But something in her voice made him pause, made him want to believe her despite every rational instinct screaming that this made no sense. "You're saying I'll let you sleep in my bed?" he said slowly. "I slept on the floor," Victoria corrected. "You offered me the bed, but I took the floor. You gave me your shirt because mine was soaked through from the rain, and you didn't want me to get sick." Marcus looked down at himself, at the jeans he'd slept in, at his bare chest and feet. If what she was saying was true, he'd given her his shirt and then crashed without even bothering to change properly. Emma was cute. It was exactly the kind of thing he would do when he was running on 2 hours of sleep. "Daddy, I'm ready." Emma's voice called from the hallway. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "We're not done with this conversation." "I know," Victoria said. "I'll be here when you get back." "You better be," Marcus said. "Because if you're not, I'm filing a police report for breaking and entering, billionaire or not." Victoria's mouth quirked up at one corner. Not quite a smile, but something close. "Understood." Marcus turned away and went to gather Emma's backpack, his mind spinning with questions that had no answers. 20 minutes later, he was driving Emma to school in his 15-year-old Honda, fielding questions about the pretty lady in their kitchen. "Is she your girlfriend?" Emma asked. "No, sweetheart. She's just someone who needed help. Like when we helped Mrs. Chan when her cat was stuck in the tree." "Something like that." Yui for a moment, processing. Then she asked, "Is she in trouble like Mommy was?" Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Emma's mother, Sarah, had left when Emma was 2 years old. Left to chase a music career in Los Angeles that never materialized, leaving behind a daughter she'd called a mistake and a husband she'd called a waste of her potential. "No," Marcus said firmly. "Not like Mommy. This is different." He pulled up to the school drop-off line, kissed Emma's forehead, and watched her run toward the entrance with her backpack bouncing against her small shoulders. Then he sat in his car for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel, trying to make sense of the impossible morning. Finally, he put the car in gear and drove home to face whatever truth Victoria Chan was about to tell him. When he walked back into his apartment, she was exactly where he'd left her, still wearing his shirt, still standing in his kitchen. But now she had washed the breakfast dishes and straightened the living room, moving Emma's toys into neat piles that somehow looked wrong in their tidiness. "You didn't have to clean," Marcus said. "I needed to do something with my hands," Victoria admitted. "Sitting still makes me think too much." He moved to the coffee maker, poured himself a cup, and leaned against the counter. "Start talking." Victoria took a breath, and then she began to tell him about the night before, about decisions she'd made and dangers she'd walked into, and about why a woman worth $3.2 billion had ended up on his doorstep with nowhere else to go. The story Victoria told was fragmented at first, pieces that didn't quite fit together. She spoke about a board meeting that had gone wrong, about discovering financial discrepancies in accounts she was supposed to trust, about realizing someone close to her was embezzling millions while positioning her to take the fall. "I couldn't go home," Victoria said, her fingers wrapped around the coffee mug. "My apartment has security cameras, staff who report my movements. Whoever's behind this would know the moment I arrived. I needed time to think, to figure out who I could trust." Marcus listened, his initial anger slowly transforming into something more complicated. "So you chose a random stranger's apartment?" "Not random," Victoria said quietly. "I've been watching you for 3 months." The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples of unease through Marcus's chest. "Excuse me." Victoria met his eyes. "I know how that sounds, but there's a reason." She set down her mug. "Your warehouse, the one where you work, it's owned by a subsidiary of Chen Industries. 6 months ago, I started doing surprise visits to our properties. Not the executive suites, the actual facilities. I wanted to see how people were really being treated." Marcus remembered that visit. The entire warehouse had been on edge for a week, everyone scrambling to look busy whenever someone in a suit walked past. "I saw you," Victoria continued. "You were helping one of the older workers lift a pallet that was too heavy for him. Then you stayed 3 hours past your shift to help another worker finish his section because his daughter had a recital and he couldn't miss it again." "That was just being decent," Marcus said. "No." Victoria shook her head. "That was exceptional. Most people wouldn't have noticed. Even fewer would have helped." She paused. "I started paying attention after that. Not in a creepy way," she added quickly. "I just made sure to check in on that facility more often when I was in the area. And every time I did, I saw the same thing. You, helping people. You, staying late. You, being kind when no one was watching." Marcus didn't know what to say to that. He'd never thought about his actions as exceptional, just as necessary. When you'd been broke enough times, when you'd struggled alone enough times, you remembered what it felt like. You helped when you could. "Last night," Victoria said, "when everything fell apart and I realized I couldn't trust anyone in my circle, I thought about that warehouse. About the man who helped people without asking for anything in return. And I remembered seeing you leave work, remembered following at a distance just to see where you went. You followed me home." Marcus's voice rose slightly. "Once," Victoria said, "months ago. I know it was invasive. I know it was wrong. But I was trying to understand why you were different from everyone else in my world." Marcus set down his coffee cup with more force than necessary. "And last night, you showed up because you thought I was safe?" "Because I thought you were good," Victoria corrected. "There's a difference." She looked down at her hands. "I was right, by the way. When I knocked on your door at 9:40-something, soaking wet and babbling about needing help, you didn't hesitate. You didn't ask questions. You just let me inside, gave me your shirt, and told me I could stay as long as I needed." Marcus tried to remember, tried to pull up some fragment of this interaction. But there was nothing, just the blank space of exhaustion-induced sleep. "I don't remember," he said helplessly. "I know," Victoria said. "You were dead on your feet. I could see it. You sat down on your couch to ask me what kind of trouble I was in, and you were asleep before I finished the first sentence." She smiled faintly. "You were still holding your phone, ready to call the police if I said the wrong thing." That sounded like him. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, trying to process this avalanche of information. Okay, let's say I believe you. Let's say everything you're telling me is true. What happens now? Now I need to make some calls from a phone that can't be traced back to me, Victoria said. I need to access some files without triggering any security alerts. And I need about 48 hours before anyone realizes where I am. And you think you can do all that from here? From my apartment? I think I have a better chance here than anywhere else, Victoria said. She stood up, and Marcus noticed how a shirt moved on her frame, simultaneously too big and somehow making her look smaller, more vulnerable than any Forbes cover ever had. I'll pay you, she added quickly, for the inconvenience, for the risk. Name your price. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. You think I want money? Everyone wants money, Victoria said, but there was no cynicism in her voice, just weariness. In my experience, it's the one universal truth. Then your experience sucks, Marcus said bluntly. He crossed his arms. I'm not taking your money. If I help you, it's because you need help, not because you can afford to pay me. Victoria stared at him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then something in her expression cracked, just slightly, and Marcus saw what might have been the beginning of tears before she blinked them away. Why would you do that? She asked quietly. You don't even know me. Because you showed up at my door asking for help, Marcus said. And because I've been in situations where I needed help and didn't get it. I don't want to be the kind of person who turns someone away. Victoria looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. Like kindness without transaction was a concept she'd forgotten existed. Okay, she said finally. Okay, thank you. Marcus nodded. But I have conditions. You don't touch anything that belongs to Emma. You don't bring danger to this apartment. And you leave the second I tell you to. No arguments. Agreed. And you wear actual pants, Marcus added. Because my shirt and nothing else is going to give Mrs. Chun next door a heart attack if she stops by. For the first time, Victoria actually smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger, less like a billionaire CEO and more like someone who'd forgotten how to be a person outside of boardrooms and balance sheets. I'll see what I can do about the pants, she said. Marcus shook his head, already wondering what he'd gotten himself into. Marcus left Victoria in his apartment with explicit instructions. Don't answer the door, don't open the windows, and definitely don't order anything that could be traced back to his address. He drove to work feeling like he'd left a live grenade on his kitchen table. The morning shift at the warehouse was brutal. His supervisor, a man named Danny who'd been there 20 years and had the bad knees to prove it, noticed immediately that something was off. You look like you got hit by a truck, Danny said, watching Marcus fumble the same inventory count twice. Everything okay at home? Emma is sick. No, she's fine, Marcus said. Just didn't sleep well. That was the understatement of the century. He'd spent the entire drive to work replaying Victoria's story, trying to find the holes, the inconsistencies, the moment where he should have called the police instead of agreeing to harbor a fugitive billionaire in his apartment. Because that's what he was doing, wasn't it? Harboring someone. Even if she claimed she was the victim, even if her eyes had held that raw desperation he recognized from his own worst moments, he was still taking an enormous risk. His phone buzzed in his pocket around 11. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him step away from the forklift, away from a noise, and press accept. It's me, Victoria's voice said. Quiet, controlled. I'm using a burner phone I had delivered. Don't worry, I had it sent to a pickup location 3 blocks away. No connection to your address. Okay, Marcus said. Everything all right? There was a pause. I'm in your apartment alone, wearing borrowed clothes, and try to dismantle a conspiracy that could destroy my company. I'm not sure all right is the word I'd use. Despite everything, Marcus felt his mouth twitch toward a smile. Fair point. Why are you calling? To tell you I'll be gone before you get home, Victoria said. I accessed what I needed. I have people I can trust now, lawyers who can help. You've done more than enough, and I don't want to put you or Emma at risk any longer. Marcus should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt something else entirely. Where will you go? I have options. That's not an answer. Another pause, longer this time. A hotel, probably. Somewhere public enough that they can't make me disappear quietly. Marcus thought about that. About Victoria Chun walking into a hotel lobby alone, about how easy it would be for someone with resources to find her, to corner her, to make sure she never got the chance to expose whatever corruption she'd uncovered. He thought about Emma's question in the car. Is she in trouble like Mommy was? Don't go, Marcus heard himself say. Marcus, I can't stay. It's not fair to you. Fair isn't the issue. Safe is the issue. He glanced around to make sure no one was within earshot. Look, I don't know anything about corporate espionage or whatever this is, but I know what happens to people when they're alone and vulnerable. They get hurt. So if you've got nowhere better to be, stay one more night. Figure out your next move when you're not running on fear and adrenaline. Silence stretched across the line. Marcus could hear her breathing, could almost feel her weighing the decision. Why are you doing this? Victoria asked finally. Because you asked for help, Marcus said. And I'm not done helping yet. We got home at 6:15. Victoria was still there. She'd found a pair of Emma's leggings that miraculously fit, though they only reached her mid-calf, and she'd paired them with a shirt, which she'd tied at the waist. She looked absurd and somehow still managed to look put together, like she could walk into a board meeting dressed like this, and everyone would assume it was intentional. She was sitting on his couch with his laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She looked up when he entered, and something in her expression made his chest tighten. I made calls, she said without preamble. My attorney is filing injunctions. My CFO, the one person I'm certain isn't involved, is securing the physical evidence. And my head of security is currently going through months of building access logs. That's good, Marcus said, setting down his keys. It's something, Victoria corrected. Whether it's enough remains to be seen. She closed the laptop. I also had clothes delivered to that same pickup location. Real clothes. I'll return these. Keep them, Marcus said. I have a feeling Emma's leggings have never been worn by someone on the Forbes list before. That's probably worth something. Victoria's smile was brief, but genuine. Priceless, I'm sure. The sound of small footsteps in the hallway announced Emma's arrival. Mrs. Chun from next door, elderly and kind, appeared in the doorway with Emma bouncing beside her. Daddy! Emma launched herself at Marcus, and he caught her, lifting her up despite the ache in his shoulders. Mrs. Chun made cookies, and I helped, and I only ate 3, which is less than yesterday. That's very restrained of you, Marcus said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. He looked at Mrs. Chun. Thank you for picking her up. Of course, dear, Mrs. Chun said. Then her eyes landed on Victoria, still sitting on the couch, and her eyebrows rose dramatically. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. This is Victoria, Marcus said, before Victoria could offer her full name. She's a friend who's staying for a couple of days. Mrs. Chin's expression shifted into something knowing and pleased. A friend. How lovely. She patted Marcus's arm. It's good to see you with someone, dear. You work too hard. It's not like that. Marcus started, but Mrs. Chun was already retreating into the hallway with a wave. I'll let you 3 have dinner. Emma, remember what we talked about? Vegetables before dessert. The door closed, and Emma wriggled out of Marcus's arms to approach Victoria with the fearless curiosity of childhood. Are you still here? Emma asked. I am, Victoria said. Is that okay with you? Emma studied her seriously. Do you like macaroni and cheese? I do. The kind from the box or the fancy kind? Victoria's lips twitched. I think I prefer the kind from the box, actually. Emma nodded, satisfied. Okay, you can stay. Daddy makes it really good. He adds extra cheese. Marcus watched this exchange with something warm spreading through his chest. Emma had been cautious around new people since Sarah left, always waiting to see if they would disappear too. But here she was, accepting Victoria's presence with a simplicity that made it seem easy. Extra cheese it is, Marcus said. Emma, go wash your hands. Emma skipped off toward the bathroom, and Marcus moved into the kitchen. Victoria followed. You don't have to cook for me, she said. I'm cooking for Emma, Marcus replied, pulling out a pot. You're just collateral dinner. Victoria leaned against the counter, watching him work. There was something almost wistful in her expression. What? Marcus asked. I'm trying to remember the last time someone cooked for me, Victoria said. Not a private chef, not a restaurant. Just someone making food in their kitchen. Marcus glanced at her. Seriously? Seriously. She crossed her arms. When you have money, everything becomes a transaction. Food is prepared by staff you pay. Friendships are maintained through expensive dinners. Even family gatherings become events with caterers and coordinators. She paused. I forgot what it was like to just exist in a space without performing. Marcus poured pasta into boiling water. That sounds lonely. It is, Victoria said quietly. I just didn't let myself think about it. Emma returned, her hands still damp, and climbed onto a kitchen chair. Victoria, do you have a little girl like me? Victoria's expression shuddered slightly. No, I don't have any children. Do you want one? Emma, Marcus warned gently. That's personal. It's okay, Victoria said. She looked at Emma with something soft in her eyes. I used to think I did, but then I built a company, and there wasn't time. And then more years passed, and it stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like just how things were. Emma processed this with a seriousness only children could muster. That's sad. Maybe a little, Victoria agreed. You could borrow me sometimes, Emma offered. If you want practice. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Victoria's eyes went bright, and she blinked rapidly. That's very generous of you, Victoria managed. I'm very generous, Emma said proudly. Daddy says it's my best quality. They ate dinner together at the small table, Emma chattering about her day at school, about how Tommy Kirkland had tried to steal her eraser again, and she'd used her words instead of pushing him like last time. Marcus listened and prompted and praised, painfully aware of Victoria watching this domestic routine like it was something foreign and precious. After dinner, Emma insisted Victoria help with bath time, which turned into a splash war that left water all over the bathroom floor. Then came pajamas, teeth brushing, and the bedtime story ritual. Will you read with us? Emma asked Victoria, already snuggled under her covers with her stuffed rabbit. Victoria glanced at Marcus. He shrugged, leaving it up to her. I'd like that, Victoria said. They squeezed onto Emma's narrow bed. Marcus on one side, Victoria on the other, Emma between them. Marcus read 2 chapters of Charlotte's Web, doing voices for each character, and when he glanced over at one point, he saw Victoria's hand resting gently on Emma's hair, her expression unguarded in a way he hadn't seen before. When Emma finally drifted off, they crept out of the room together. The apartment felt different in the quiet, more intimate. Marcus was suddenly very aware that they were alone, that Victoria was still wearing his shirt, that she smelled like his soap and Emma's strawberry shampoo. Thank you, Victoria said softly, for letting me be part of that. She likes you, Marcus said. That's not something that happens easily. They moved to the couch, maintaining a careful distance. Victoria pulled her knees up, making herself smaller, and Marcus noticed the way exhaustion had etched itself into the lines around her eyes. Tell me about your wife, Victoria said. Emma's mother. Marcus stiffened. What? Because Emma asked if I was in trouble like her mommy was, Victoria said. And I want to understand what that means. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he started talking, telling her about Sarah, about how they'd met young and married younger, about how Emma's birth had revealed cracks in their relationship that had always been there, about how Sarah had looked at their daughter and seen an obstacle instead of a gift, and how she'd left one morning with a suitcase and a note that said she deserved better than this life. She was in trouble because she couldn't be happy, Marcus said. No matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. She was always chasing something else, something more, something that would finally make her feel complete. He looked at Victoria. I learned that you can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. And you can't love someone into staying if they've already decided to go. Victoria was quiet for a moment. That must have hurt. It did, Marcus admitted. But you know what hurt more? Watching Emma wait by the window every day for months, thinking her mommy was coming back. Having to explain that sometimes people leave, and it's not because of anything you did wrong. She stopped waiting. Eventually, Marcus rubbed his face. Now she just asks about her sometimes. Whether she's okay, whether she thinks about us. And I lie and say yes, because what else can I do? Victoria reached out, hesitated, then let her hand rest on his arm. The contact was light, barely there, but Marcus felt it like an anchor. "You're a good father," she said. "Emma is lucky to have you." "Some days I'm not sure," Marcus said honestly. "Some days I feel like I'm failing her in 100 small ways." "You're not," Victoria said firmly. "I watched you with her tonight. The patience, the attention, the love, that's not failure. That's everything." Marcus met her eyes, and something passed between them. An understanding, maybe, a recognition that they were both carrying wounds they'd learned to hide. "Tell me about you," Marcus said. "Not the CEO part, the real part." Victoria pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around her knees. "I grew up poor," she said. "Not struggling poor, desperately poor. My mother cleaned houses. My father worked construction when he could get it, which wasn't often enough. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment smaller than this, and I slept on the couch until I was 16. Marcus listened, watching her face as she spoke. "I was good at math," Victoria continued. "Really good. Got a full scholarship to MIT. Worked 3 jobs to cover what the scholarship didn't. Built my first company at 23, sold it at 26, started Chin Industries at 28. She paused. "And somewhere in there, I forgot how to be anything other than successful." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I optimized everything," Victoria said. "My time, my relationships, my goals. Everything became about efficiency, about returns on investment. I stopped calling my parents because they didn't understand my world. I stopped dating because no one wanted me, they wanted access to me. I stopped doing anything that didn't directly contribute to building the company." She looked at him. "And now I'm 36 years old, worth billions, and I realized last night that I couldn't think of a single person I trusted enough to ask for help." "Except me," Marcus said. "Except you," Victoria agreed. "A man I'd watched from a distance, who had no idea I existed, who had no reason to help me, and every reason not to." "Why didn't you call your parents?" Marcus asked. Something flickered across Victoria's face. Pain, sharp and fresh. "My father died 3 years ago. Heart attack on a construction site. He was 71 and still working because he refused to take the money I offered him." Her voice cracked slightly. "He said he didn't raise a daughter who could buy him, and I said was trying to help him, and we fought. That was the last conversation we had." Marcus's chest ached. "Victoria, my mother and I haven't spoken since the funeral," Victoria continued. "She blamed me for his death. Said I'd given him stress, given him shame, made him feel like he wasn't enough." She wiped at her eyes angrily. Maybe she was right. She wasn't, Marcus said firmly. "Your father made his own choices. His pride, his stubbornness, that wasn't your fault." "How do you know?" "Because I see the same thing in you," Marcus said. "That determination to do it yourself, to prove you don't need help." "But needing help isn't weakness, Victoria. It's just being human." She looked at him, and in her eyes, he saw the girl who'd slept on a couch for 16 years, who'd clawed her way out of poverty through brilliance and relentless work, who'd built an empire and lost everything that mattered along the way. "I don't know how to be human anymore," she whispered. "Yes, you do," Marcus said. "You've been doing it all day, making breakfast, playing with Emma, sitting here telling me things that hurt. That's all being human is, showing up, being present, letting people see you." Victoria closed her eyes, and tears slipped down her cheeks. Marcus didn't think, just moved closer and pulled her into his arms. She stiffened for a moment, then collapsed against his chest, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. He held her while she cried, one hand on her back, the other in her hair, and thought about how strange it was that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was simply be there while someone fell apart. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red, her face blotchy, and she looked more real than any magazine cover had ever captured. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping at her face. "Don't be. I got your shirt wet." "It's seen worse," Marcus said. "Emma once threw up spaghetti on it." Victoria laughed, a watery, broken sound. "That's disgusting. That's parenthood." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the city hummed with its nighttime rhythm. Inside, the apartment was warm and dim, and Marcus felt something shifting, some barrier between them dissolving. "I should sleep," Victoria said finally. You have work tomorrow. Take the bed, Marcus offered. I'll take the couch. No, you already gave me your floor last night. The couch is more than fair. Victoria, Marcus, she interrupted. Please, let me do this. Let me take the couch. He could see she needed this, needed to not be indulged, needed to maintain some sense of independence, even while accepting help. So he nodded. Okay, but if you change your mind, the bed is open. She smiled. Duly noted. Marcus grabbed spare blankets and a pillow, set them on the couch. Victoria stood awkwardly, clearly unsure how to end this moment. Good night, she said finally. Good night, Marcus replied. He was halfway to his bedroom when her voice stopped him. Marcus. He turned. Thank you, Victoria said. For all of it. For believing me. For not treating me like I'm made of glass or gold. For just treating me like a person. Marcus felt something warm expand his chest. That's all you ever needed to be. He closed his bedroom door and lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the woman sleeping on his couch. The billionaire who'd forgotten how to be human. The girl who'd lost her father without reconciling. The person who'd chosen him, of all people, to trust. And he thought about how sometimes the universe put people in your path not because you needed them, but because they needed you. The next morning, Marcus woke to find Victoria already awake, sitting at his kitchen table with Emma, helping her with her homework. Emma was explaining fractions with the confidence of someone who'd figured out the secret of the universe. And Victoria was listening with genuine interest, asking questions, making suggestions. The bottom number is how many pieces the whole thing is cut into, Emma said, drawing circles on her paper. And the top number is how many pieces you have. So, if I have a pizza cut into 8 slices, Victoria said, and I eat 3 slices, I've eaten 3/8 of the pizza? Yes, Emma beamed. You're really smart. You're an excellent teacher, Victoria replied. Marcus leaned against the doorframe, watching them. Victoria had changed into the clothes she'd had delivered. Dark jeans and a simple sweater that probably cost more than his rent, but looked understated enough to pass for normal. Her hair was pulled back, her face bare of makeup, and she looked younger somehow. Less untouchable. She glanced up and caught him watching. Something passed between them, wordless and significant. Morning, Marcus said. Morning, Victoria replied. I hope it's okay that I'm helping with homework. Emma said her teacher gave her extra practice problems. More than okay, Marcus said. He moved into the kitchen, started the coffee maker. How'd you sleep? Better than I expected, Victoria admitted. Your couch is surprisingly comfortable. It's held together with duct tape in 3 places, Marcus said. But I'm glad it worked. Emma finished her last problem with a flourish. Done. Can I go play before school? Marcus checked the time. 20 minutes. Stay where I can see you. Emma scrambled off to her room, and suddenly it was just the two of them in the kitchen. Marcus poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Victoria. Your lawyer called yet? He asked. 3 times, Victoria said. The injunctions are holding. We've frozen the accounts in question, and my head of security found something interesting in the access logs. What? Someone's been entering my private office after hours for months, Victoria said. Always when I was out of town, always using a master override code that only 5 people have access to. Do you know who? Victoria's jaw tightened. I have a suspicion, but I need more proof before I make accusations. Marcus studied her face. This person, whoever they are they dangerous? Financially, very, Victoria said. Physically, she shrugged. I don't know. I didn't think they were capable of embezzlement either, so my judgment is clearly impaired. When will you know for sure? Today, hopefully, Victoria said. I have a meeting scheduled with my attorney and the board at 4. They're going to present everything we've found. She looked at him. By tonight, this will either be over or significantly worse. Marcus felt a chill. And if it's worse, then I'll need to disappear more permanently, Victoria said quietly. And I can't do that from your apartment. I won't put you and Emma at risk. The thought of her leaving, of walking out into danger alone, made Marcus's chest tighten in a way he didn't want to examine too closely. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, he said. Victoria held his gaze. Let's hope. The day passed in strange slow motion. Marcus went to work, spent 8 hours lifting and loading and trying not to check his phone every 5 minutes. Victoria stayed in the apartment, making calls, reviewing documents, preparing for the confrontation ahead. When Marcus picked up Emma from school, his daughter asked immediately if Victoria would be there when they got home. "I think so," Marcus said. "But Emma, Victoria might have to leave soon. She has important work to do." Emma's face fell. "But I like her." "I know, sweetheart. I like her too. Is she going to disappear like Mommy?" The question hit Marcus in the chest. "No, baby. Victoria isn't leaving because of us. She's leaving because she has responsibilities. But that doesn't mean she doesn't care about you." "How do you know?" Marcus thought about Victoria on the couch last night, tears streaming down her face as she talked about her father. About the way she'd listened to Emma explain fractions this morning like it was the most important conversation in the world. "Because I saw the way she looks at you," Marcus said. "Like you're something precious." When they got home, Victoria was pacing the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. She looked up when they entered, and Marcus could read the tension in every line of her body. "Understood," she said into the phone. "I'll be there." She hung up and looked at Marcus. "The meeting's been moved up. I need to leave in an hour." "Daddy, can Victoria stay for dinner?" Emma asked. Victoria knelt down to Emma's level. "I wish I could, sweetheart, but I have a very important meeting I can't miss. Will you come back after?" Victoria glanced at Marcus, then back at Emma. "I don't know, but I promise, no matter what happens, I'll never forget the time we spent together. You taught me something important." "What?" "That fractions are easier than I remembered," Victoria said with a small smile. "And that some people are kind just because that's who they are, not because they want something in return." Emma threw her arms around Victoria's neck. Victoria hugged her back, her eyes closing, and Marcus saw her swallow hard. "Be brave," Emma whispered. "Like Charlotte." Victoria's breath hitched. "Like Charlotte," she agreed. She stood, and Marcus walked her to the door. They stood in the hallway, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. "Thank you," Victoria said, "for everything. For trusting me, for helping me, for reminding me what it feels like to be human." "You don't have to thank me," Marcus said. "Just be safe." Victoria reached up, hesitated, then touched his cheek. The gesture was brief, barely there, but it sent electricity through his nervous system. "If this goes badly," she said quietly, "if I can't come back." "Don't," Marcus interrupted. "Don't say goodbye like it's permanent." "Marcus, you come back," he said firmly. "Whatever happens in that meeting, you walk out, and you come back here. We'll figure out the rest together." Victoria's eyes were bright. "You barely know me." "I know enough," Marcus said. "I know you're brilliant and brave, and you've been alone for too long. I know Emma lights up when you're around. And I know that I want to see you tomorrow, and the day after that, and however many days you'll let me." "What?" The word came out broken. "Because you make me want to be brave too," Marcus said. "Because watching you with Emma showed me what I've been missing. And because I think maybe we're both tired of pretending we don't need anyone." Victoria closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were full of tears and determination. "I'll come back," she said. "I promise." "Good," Marcus said. "We'll be waiting." She left, and Marcus stood in the doorway watching her go, his heart pounding against his ribs. Emma came to stand beside him, slipping her small hand into his. "She's coming back, right, Daddy?" Marcus squeezed her hand. "Yes, baby. She's coming back." But as the elevator doors closed on Victoria's face, he felt a cold thread of fear wind through his chest, because he knew that sometimes, no matter how hard you believed, some people didn't come back after all. The board meeting was scheduled for 4 o'clock. By 4:30, Marcus had checked his phone 17 times. By 5, Emma had asked 3 times if Victoria was okay. By 6, Marcus was pacing his small living room while Emma picked at her dinner, both of them pretending they weren't worried. "Maybe her meeting is just running long," Emma said, pushing peas around her plate. "Maybe," Marcus agreed, though his gut told him something else entirely. At 6:47, his phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus grabbed it. "Hello, Mr. Reed," a woman's voice, professional and clipped. "This is Catherine Walsh. I'm Victoria Chen's attorney. She asked me to call you. Marcus's blood turned cold. Is she okay? She's safe, Catherine said quickly. But the situation has become complicated. The board meeting revealed that the embezzlement goes deeper than we thought. We're talking about systematic fraud involving multiple executives. Victoria is currently in a secure location with her security team. Where? I can't disclose that information, but she wanted me to tell you she's sorry and that it might be several days before she can return. Several days. The words landed like stones. Marcus closed his eyes. Can I talk to her? Not right now. Communications are being monitored by law enforcement as part of the investigation. But she wanted you to know she hasn't forgotten her promise. The line went dead. Marcus stood in his kitchen, phone still pressed to his ear, feeling the weight of disappointment settle into his bones. He'd known this was coming. Had known from the beginning that Victoria's life was complicated, dangerous, that she existed in a world he couldn't follow her into. But knowing it and feeling it were two different things. Daddy. Emma's voice was small. Is Victoria okay? Marcus turned to his daughter, saw the worry in her green eyes, the same worry that had lived there for months after Sarah left. The fear that people she cared about simply vanished. He knelt down, pulled Emma into his arms. She's okay, baby. She's just dealing with some grown-up problems that are going to take time to fix. Is she coming back? Marcus thought about Victoria's face when she'd promised. The determination in her eyes, the way she'd touched his cheek like he was something precious. Yes, he said, believing it because he had to. She's coming back. 3 days passed. Marcus went to work, picked up Emma, made dinner, read bedtime stories. Life continued in its familiar rhythm, but everything felt slightly off-kilter, like a picture hanging crooked that you couldn't quite straighten. Emma asked about Victoria every day. Marcus had no answers. On the fourth night, Marcus was washing dishes when Emma came into the kitchen holding her stuffed rabbit and the book Victoria had read to them. Can we read this? Emma asked. It makes me feel like she's still here. Marcus dried his hands and lifted Emma onto his hip. Of course we can. They were halfway through the second chapter when someone knocked on the door. Sharp, urgent. Marcus's heart jumped. He set Emma down. Stay here. He checked the peephole and felt the breath leave his body. Victoria stood in the hallway, wearing the same jeans and sweater from days ago, her hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted and beautiful and real. Marcus opened the door. Hi, Victoria said. Her voice was rough, like she'd been talking for hours. Sorry I'm late. Marcus couldn't find words. He just stepped aside, and Victoria walked in. Emma appeared from the living room, saw Victoria, and ran. Victoria caught her, lifting her up, holding her tight, while Emma wrapped her arms around Victoria's neck like she'd never let go. You came back, Emma said into Victoria's shoulder. I promised, didn't I? Victoria's voice cracked. I always keep my promises. Marcus watched them, this embrace between a billionaire and a 6-year-old, and felt something in his chest crack open. Victoria set Emma down gently. I need to talk to your dad for a few minutes, okay? Then I'll tell you everything that happened. Emma nodded and retreated to the living room, though she kept glancing back like Victoria might disappear if she looked away too long. Marcus led Victoria to the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, and he could see how heavily the last 4 days had weighed on her. Tell me, he said quietly. Victoria took a breath. The embezzlement was orchestrated by my COO, someone I trusted for 8 years. He'd been siphoning money through shell corporations, covering his tracks with altered reports. When I started getting suspicious, he tried to frame me, make it look like I was the one stealing from my own company. But your attorney stopped him? The evidence we gathered was enough to prove my innocence, Victoria said. But the damage to the company is significant. We're talking about millions in losses, investor confidence shattered, potential lawsuits. The board had an emergency vote last night. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. About what? About whether I should remain as CEO, Victoria said. Given the breach of trust, the financial losses, the chaos. Several board members thought it would be better for the company if I stepped down. What did you do? Victoria's eyes met his. I gave him a choice. Either trust me to rebuild what was broken or accept my resignation immediately. And they voted to keep me, Victoria said, by one vote. But there are conditions: increased oversight, quarterly reviews, external audits. I'm essentially on probation in my own company. Marcus searched her face. What do you feel about that? Honestly, Victoria laughed, but it was hollow. Angry, humiliated, grateful I still have company at all. She rubbed her face, but mostly exhausted. I've spent 4 days in conference rooms and lawyers' offices, fighting to save something I built from nothing. And the whole time, all I could think about was this apartment, Emma, and you. Marcus's heart stuttered. Victoria, I have a choice to make, she interrupted, about what comes next, and I needed to come here before I made it. What choice? Victoria pushed off the counter, started pacing the small kitchen. To rebuild Chen Industries the way the board wants will require everything I have. 18-hour days, constant travel, sacrificing any semblance of personal life. It's what I've always done. It's what everyone expects. But, Marcus prompted. But 4 days ago, a little girl taught me about fractions and told me I could borrow her if I want to practice being a mom, Victoria said, her voice breaking. And a man I barely knew held me while I cried and told me that needing help isn't weakness. And I realized that somewhere in building my empire, I forgot to build a life. She stopped pacing, looked at Marcus with eyes that held fear and hope in equal measure. I don't want to go back to who I was, Victoria said. I don't want to be the woman who works 100 hours a week and can't name a single person who knows her, who has billions in the bank and no one to share dinner with, who's so afraid of being used that she forgets how to be loved. Marcus's throat was tight. What do you want? I want to figure out how to be both, Victoria said. The CEO and the person. The businesswoman and the woman who reads bedtime stories. I want to fix my company, but I also want to fix myself. She stepped closer. And I want to do it here, with you and Emma, if you will let me. Marcus stared at her. You're saying you want to stay? I'm saying I want to try, Victoria said. I know it's complicated. I know my life is in chaos right now. I know I have no right to ask you to let me back in after disappearing for 4 days. But Marcus, I've never felt more like myself than I did in this apartment. And I think maybe that's worth fighting for. Before Marcus could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway. Are you staying? She asked Victoria directly. Victoria knelt down to Emma's level. Do you want me to stay? Yes, Emma said without hesitation. But not if you're going to leave again and make Daddy sad. Emma, Marcus started, but Victoria held up a hand. That's fair, Victoria said to Emma. You're right to protect your dad. And I can't promise I'll never have to leave for work or that things won't be hard sometimes. But I can promise that I'll always come back. And I'll always tell you the truth about where I'm going and why. Emma considered this with the seriousness only children possess. Then she looked at Marcus. What do you think, Daddy? Marcus looked at Victoria, at this woman who'd crashed into his life wearing his shirt, who'd cried in his arms and played with his daughter, and showed him what it looked like when someone chose to be vulnerable despite every reason to protect themselves. I think, Marcus said slowly, that people who keep their promises are rare. And when you find one, you hold on. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I think, Marcus continued, that Emma and I have been doing okay on our own. But okay isn't the same as happy. And you make us happy. You make me happy too, Victoria whispered. Emma threw her arms around Victoria again. And this time Marcus joined them, the three of them standing in a small kitchen that suddenly felt like the center of the universe. When they finally pulled apart, Emma had questions, dozens of them, about where Victoria had been and what board meetings were like and whether she could come to school for show and tell. They ordered pizza because Marcus was too emotionally wrung out to cook. They ate on the living room floor because Emma insisted it was more fun that way. Victoria told stories about the meeting, edited for a 6-year-old's understanding, about how sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and have to work hard to fix them. After Emma fell asleep, Marcus and Victoria sat on the couch together, closer than before, the space between them no longer feeling like a chasm. I meant what I said, Victoria told him quietly, about wanting to try. But you should know what that means. I'll be in the news. There will be photographers, reporters asking questions. People will dig into your life, Emma's life. It won't be easy. Is any of this easy? Marcus asked. Was it easy for you to show up at my door that first night? Was it easy for me to let a stranger stay in my home? Was it easy for Emma to trust you after her mother left? No, Victoria admitted. Then we're already used to doing hard things, Marcus said. He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. Besides, I've thought about it. And you know what I realized? What? Emma needs to see what it looks like when people choose each other, Marcus said. Not because it's convenient or easy, but because it's right. Her mother chose herself. I want Emma to see someone who chooses us, even when it's complicated. Victoria's breath hitched. I choose you. Both of you. I know I'm probably going to mess this up sometimes. I know I don't know how to balance everything yet. But I want to learn. Marcus lifted her hand, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Then we'll figure it out together. Just like that. Just like that, Marcus confirmed. No tests. No games. Just two people who are tired of being alone, trying to build something real. Victoria leaned her head against his shoulder. When did you get so wise? Probably somewhere between the second diaper blowout and the 50th reading of Goodnight Moon, Marcus said, and felt her laugh against him. They sat in comfortable silence, the apartment quiet except for the distant hum of the city. Marcus thought about the morning he'd woken to find Victoria in his kitchen. How impossible everything had seemed then. How impossible everything still seemed, in a way. But impossible didn't mean wrong. Sometimes the most important things were the ones that didn't make sense on paper. Stay tonight, Marcus said. No couch this time. Take the bed. Where will you sleep? I'll take the couch. Victoria pulled back to look at him. Or we could both take the bed. Just sleeping, she added quickly. I'm not asking for more than that. I just don't want to be alone tonight. Marcus studied her face, saw the vulnerability there, the hope, the fear of rejection. Okay, he said softly. We can do that. Later, lying in the darkness with Victoria curled against his side, her breathing evening out into sleep, Marcus thought about choices. About how Victoria had chosen vulnerability over armor, had chosen him over isolation, had chosen to come back when she could have disappeared into her billionaire world and never looked back. And he thought about his own choice, to open his door to a stranger, to believe in second chances, to trust that maybe this time, love didn't have to mean loss. Thank you, Victoria murmured, half asleep. For what? For being you, she said. For not wanting me to be anything else. Marcus pressed a kiss to her hair. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we figure out the rest. Tomorrow, Victoria agreed, and let herself fall asleep in a place that finally felt like home. The next 3 months were a study in controlled chaos. Victoria split her time between Marcus's apartment and emergency sessions at Shin Industries. The company's recovery was slow, painful, requiring her to rebuild trust with investors, clients, and her own employees. But she kept her promise. Every night that she wasn't traveling, she came back to the apartment. She learned Emma's bedtime routine, figured out how to make macaroni and cheese with the right amount of extra cheese, attended parent-teacher conferences, and helped with homework. The media attention was as brutal as Victoria had warned. Photographers caught them at the grocery store. Reporters asked invasive questions. Internet commenters had opinions about the billionaire dating a warehouse worker. Marcus's supervisor pulled him aside to ask if everything was okay, and Emma came home from school saying some kids were asking weird questions about her dad's girlfriend. But they weathered it together. Victoria hired a PR team to handle the worst of it. Marcus learned to say no comment and keep walking. Emma learned that sometimes people were curious about things that weren't their business. And slowly, gradually, what had started as impossible became simply life. Victoria began working fewer hours, delegating more, rebuilding her company with a focus on sustainability rather than endless growth. She hired a new COO, implemented systems of transparency, and made peace with the fact that being a good CEO didn't mean sacrificing everything else. She also started calling her mother. The first conversation lasted 3 minutes and ended with both of them in tears. The second lasted 10 minutes and included an apology that was 3 years overdue. By the 10th conversation, they were tentatively planning a visit. Marcus watched Victoria transform from someone who'd forgotten how to be human into someone who embraced it. She laughed more easily, cried more openly, asked for help without shame. She learned that strength wasn't about doing everything alone. It was about knowing when to lean on others. And somewhere in those 3 months, what had started as crisis and necessity became something else entirely. Marcus fell in love with the way Victoria read to Emma, with different voices for each character. With how she'd come home from brutal board meetings and still ask about Emma's day with genuine interest. With the way she'd curl against him at night and whisper her fears about failing, about not being enough, about losing what they'd built. He fell in love with her imperfections, with how she burned toast and forgot to buy milk, and sometimes worked so intensely she forgot to eat. With how she tried so hard to be good at this domestic life, even when it didn't come naturally. And Victoria fell in love with Marcus's steadiness, with how he never tried to change her, just made space for her to be herself. With how he believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. With how he'd hold her after difficult days and tell her she was doing better than she thought. She fell in love with the life they were building, messy and complicated and real. 3 months after that first morning, Victoria came to the apartment with a key Marcus had given her. She let herself in to find Marcus and Emma decorating cookies, flour everywhere, frosting in colors that probably shouldn't exist in nature. "You're making a mess," Victoria observed, laughing. "We're making art," Emma corrected, holding up a cookie covered in purple frosting and approximately 1,000 sprinkles. "This one's for you." Victoria took the cookie like it was something precious. "It's beautiful. It's going to taste terrible," Marcus warned. "She used every color we had." "It's perfect," Victoria said, and meant it. She set down her bag and joined them at the table, rolling up her sleeves and diving into the chaos. An hour later, the three of them sat on the floor, eating misshapen cookies and drinking milk, and Victoria thought about how far she'd come from that first desperate night. "I have something to tell you," Victoria said when Emma had gone to wash frosting off her hands. Marcus looked at her, and she saw understanding in his eyes. He knew her well enough now to read her moods, to sense when something important was coming. "The board voted to extend my probation," Victoria said. "Another 6 months of oversight and reviews." "How do you feel about that?" "Relieved, actually," Victoria admitted. "Because it means I don't have to choose between the company and this." She gestured at the apartment, at the cookie crumbs and the happiness. "I can have both, for a while longer at least." Marcus reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Victoria, you know you can have both as long as you want, right? This isn't temporary. Not unless you want it to be." "I don't want it to be temporary," Victoria said. "I want this to be my life. Not just the part one squeeze in between meetings, but the actual center of everything." "Then make it that," Marcus said simply. "It's not that easy. The company needs me." "The company needs a CEO," Marcus corrected. "You need a life. There's a difference." Victoria was quiet for a moment, processing. Then Emma returned, climbing into Victoria's lap with the easy affection of a child who decided someone was safe. "Victoria, when you have to go on business trips, can you call me too?" Emma asked. "Like Daddy calls me at bedtime?" "Of course I can," Victoria said, wrapping her arms around Emma. "Would you like that?" "Yes, because then, even when you're gone, you're still here a little bit." Victoria looked at Marcus over Emma's head, and in his eyes, she saw the same truth she'd been running from for months. This wasn't about logistics or schedules or balancing companies and relationships. This was about choosing what mattered. "Emma," Victoria said carefully, "how would you feel if I was here even more? If I didn't just visit but actually lived here?" Emma twisted around to look at her. "Like all the time." "Like all the time," Victoria confirmed. Emma's face split into a grin. "Can you? Really? If your dad says it's okay." Emma turned to Marcus with pleading eyes. "Daddy, please? Please can Victoria stay forever?" Marcus looked at Victoria, at this woman who'd stumbled into his life and turned it upside down in the best possible way. "What about your apartment? Your things?" "I can sell the penthouse," Victoria said. "Most of my things are just expensive reminders of a life I don't want anymore. The things that matter, I can bring here." She paused. "If there's room." "We'll make room," Marcus said softly. "There's always room." Emma squealed and hugged them both, and Marcus pulled Victoria close, kissing her properly for the first time in front of his daughter. When they broke apart, Emma was grinning. Does this mean Victoria is going to be like a mom? Victoria's breath caught. Marcus started to speak, but Victoria held up a hand. Emma, Victoria said gently, I can never replace your mom. No one can. But if you want, I can be someone who loves you and takes care of you, and will always be here for you. Like a mom, but also like me. Does that make sense? Emma thought about it seriously. Then she nodded. Like a bonus person who belongs to us. Exactly like that, Victoria said, her eyes bright with tears. A bonus person who belongs to you and your dad, if you'll have me. We'll have you, Emma said confidently. Then she jumped down and ran toward her room. I'm going to draw a picture of our family. With 3 people. Marcus and Victoria sat on the floor, surrounded by cookie crumbs and sprinkles, holding hands, watching Emma disappear into her room. Are you sure? Victoria asked. About me moving in? It's fast, and your life is going to change, and... Marcus silenced her with another kiss. My life already changed the night you showed up in the rain. This is just making it official. I'm going to mess up, Victoria warned. I'm going to have bad days and long trips and moments where I forget how to be part of a family. So will I, Marcus said. That's what makes us human. We'll figure it out as we go. Together? Together, Marcus confirmed. Victoria leaned against him, and for the first time in years, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Peace. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of something worth struggling for. I love you, she said quietly. I don't know if I've said that out loud yet, but I do. I love you and Emma, and this ridiculous apartment that's too small for 3 people, but somehow feels bigger than any penthouse I've ever owned. I love you too, Marcus said. And for the record, the apartment's lease is up in 3 months. We could look for something bigger, somewhere that feels like ours instead of mine. Somewhere with a bedroom for Emma that isn't right next to ours. Victoria suggested, and Marcus laughed. That would be practical. And maybe a kitchen that fits more than 2 people. Also practical. And a place where Emma can have a dog, because she's been asking, and I think we should say yes. Marcus pulled back to look at her. We, Victoria confirmed. If we're doing this, we're doing it all the way. Family decisions together. Marcus kissed her again, deeper this time, full of promise and possibility. When they broke apart, Emma was standing in the doorway holding a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures and what might have been a dog. Look, Emma said proudly. This is us. This is Daddy. And this is me. And this is Victoria. And this is the dog we're going to get. Victoria took the drawing, studied it seriously. What's the dog's name? Charlotte, Emma said. Like from the book. Charlotte is a perfect name, Victoria said. And she pinned the drawing to the refrigerator next to Emma's school papers and Marcus's work schedule and everything else that made up the beautiful chaos of their life. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus and Victoria lay in bed together, her head on his chest, his hand in her hair. Thank you, Victoria whispered into the darkness. For what? For opening the door that night, she said. For not turning me away. For showing me that there's more to life than just surviving. Marcus tightened his arms around her. Thank you for knocking. For trusting me. For choosing to stay even when you didn't have to. I always had to, Victoria said. I just didn't realize it until I was already home. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and when Marcus woke the next morning, Victoria was still there. She'd be there the morning after that, and the morning after that, and all the mornings that followed. Because some people, once they find their way home, never leave again. And some families, the ones worth fighting for, are built not from biology or obligation, but from choice and presence and the quiet decision to show up, day after day, for the people who need you most. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.